I am talking to Susan Michal. She is a board member of PPA and a fine art photographer and portrait photographer. How exactly do you describe yourself, Susan?
Well, it's confusing these days, actually. Well, I've been running a busy portrait studio for 20 years, and last year I decided to do this fine art project. And I actually have had some of my really good clients call and say, "Are you still doing kids?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I got to pay the bills. This fine art thing's going to take a while to get off the ground." So
Right.
it's been pretty interesting.
Right. It would be really fun to have you back at some point to talk about that kind of transition from working studio to fine art. But what I really wanted to talk about today was you have made some amazing flower images over the last couple of years. As how long have you been working on this project?
1 year. November
One
8th
year.
last year was the first day I photographed a flower in the studio. September 21st is the day I photographed what I call the perfect dahlia that started the whole thing. But November 8th is the day that I actually started photographing. And then on November 9th of this year, 1 year later, was the day that all the files were due for the fine art book. So it's kind of cool. 1 year.
Wow, that's really fast. And we want to talk a little bit about we want to mostly talk about your technique, but before we get to that, we want to talk about what you're doing with this project and who it's benefiting, because this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. I think this is an amazing charity. And so can you tell us a little bit more about how you're helping people?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited about it and glad that you give me the opportunity to share with it. I've been on the board at PPA for many years, and of course, PPA has PPA Charities, which has helped lots and lots of different things over the years. But mainly, their focus has been Operation Smile, which helps children with cleft palates. And I just decided that it would be very cool to be able to partner the book with a fine art print and give a part of that proceed to PPA Charities. And so if we have a collection now for the PPA charity, and it's $249, includes the fine art print, and $100 of that goes to PPA charity. So if we're able to sell 500 of those, then we'll be able to give a check for $50,000 to PPA charities specifically for Operation Smile.
That's fantastic. That's really, really cool. Why flowers? Why,
Flowers. Well, I always loved nature. I really cut my teeth photographing nature. And I've always said if I could travel or if I could do anything, and if I had all the money in the world, I could do anything I'd want to do. I want to travel, love landscapes, love animals. And, I'm going to Africa this year. I've
That's
decided
right.
to do that, so I'm doing that. And I've always loved flowers. And a friend of mine encouraged me to find something that I could do in the fine art realm. He felt like it was time for me to do that. And he encouraged me to do that. And I had photographed this one dahlia in Germany when I was on a trip there as PPA president, and it just kept coming back to me and kind of haunting me. So a client had given me a bouquet of flowers, and I decided one night after I got done with everything at the studio to take them into the studio because, of course, it was November. It was getting cold here, and I took them and started photographing them, and that was when it all happened. It just got bit by the bug, and I gave myself a little bit of permission to experiment with them and see what could happen, and the style just kind of started coming, and a year's worth later, that's how it all got started.
Nice. That's great. So let's take a look at some of your photos, and maybe you could talk in a little bit more detail about just exactly how you've captured these. Because, I think one of the things that on our show we talk to a lot of beginner photographers, and we often caution people like, stop photographing flowers because there's just so much that's been done out there. But you have approached it in a much more unique fashion, and they really stand out. So we're
Well,
looking at we're looking at the cover of your book right now, and this is a tulip, I think you mentioned earlier.
this is a very common tulip, and the interesting thing about this from a technique standpoint, these are lit very much the way that I would light a traditional portrait photograph, where it has two kicker lights coming in from the back. It has a hair light over the top, which you can see the highlights there. And then I use a big Larson 4x6 softbox, which has been the softbox that I've used for years and years and years, and just couldn't do without. It's it's a part of the studio like a person would be now. And that is the lighting setup that I would use. So you've got the two kicker lights coming in from the sides, the hair light, of course, over top, And then coming in from side left would be that big 4x6 softbox. And then on the right side, we've got a huge white reflector. Now, the other thing is on different flowers, especially like this flower in particular, has a deep middle. So I have a whiteboard that I handhold, and I'll move it depending on where the light needs to go. In this case, obviously, that where that yellow part is was getting a little dark, so we just pushed that right up into there and bounced a little more light up in that. And really, that's exactly what I would do with a person. Same thing.
Right. Nice. And I think I know the answer to this, but Photoshop, you haven't cut this out of its background or anything, have
Nope.
you?
That's exactly how it came
Right.
out of the camera. I mean, do very little Photoshop work on them actually, which is a fun thing. Maybe not today, but a story about I met a gallery owner who argued that they were not actually photographs, and it was a fun discussion. But yeah, all we really do in Photoshop is we'll go in and clean up a couple of things if I feel like I need to, if it's got like some spots on it, or maybe accent the highlights just a little bit, or bring out a spot that was a little too dark. But other than that, I would say that this is 95% straight out of the camera.
Wow, that's great. And let's go through and look at a few more images that you have on your blog. What camera and lens are you using?
I'm using a 100 mm macro. It's a Canon. It is the new one, and for anyone and that's the heart that is the limited edition print there for the PPA charities. 100 mm macro. It is the newer one, and it's much sharper than the older one. I mean, you can definitely see the difference in the image. I use a Canon. Well, I have the DX. I also have the new 50 megapixel camera. Mm-hmm. So I got that as soon as I possibly could, which was perfect for this kind of thing.
That's an amazing amount of detail. Now, did you get the Canon 5D SR or just the 5DS? I'm curious.
No, the portrait one, S, okay. Right?
Yep,
just the
yep,
S. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. And interestingly enough, not all of the photographs or all of the flowers you've taken are perfect. You've highlighted some in maybe would say varying stages of decay.
Yeah, and I love that. It's kind of an accident that we started that. Now the tulip, of course, is not in its prime. It's kind of going, and that's why it fell into that heart shape, and by a happy accident. This little daisy we call Crazy Daisy. We have given all fun names. I photograph a lot of dancers, and it kind of comes out if you see that. It's interesting that she almost looks like she's dancing. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, but they're all girls. I'm kind of, sorry for the boys, but they're all girls. And I love the way that they're transitioning and kind of decaying and how beautiful they are as they transition. And that's been a real interesting part of this project. I think having photographed so many people as they go through different phases in their life is what naturally attracted me to the transitioning of the stages in the flowers.
And just from local flower shops, is that where you've gotten most of the flowers for this project?
Well, and that's the big question. Everybody wants to know, where did the flowers come from? And yes, in the beginning, just local flower shops, even Whole Foods or wherever I could find something. And then I've, of course, gone ditch diving a bit. Being here in Florida, I found all kinds of really cool flowers. The thing is you don't notice them. And then you start doing something like this, and all of a sudden you start noticing the flowers. And I have been known to ditch dive, and I'm sure one day I'll take a nice little face forward into that, and we'll all have to laugh about it. But then, too, there are some dahlias, for example, that I ordered from a huge dahlia supplier because we don't have dahlias here in Florida, and got these 12-inch flowers in one day from Oregon. So that's exciting too and fun. But most of them, by and large, have come from local stores or just people's yards or whatever right here.
Wow. And, I didn't give you a heads up on this, but I think you can handle it. A couple of tips. If somebody wanted to take a really nice flower photo, what would you give them to start?
Inside or outside?
Well, that's the good question. I think most people typically are wandering around outside with their camera and see a pretty flower. How can they capture that in kind of a way that stands out from everybody else's flower photos?
Well, first and foremost, I think using depth of field makes a huge difference. As in the studio, I think one thing that really makes these look different is that you're not used to seeing them shot at f/22, which gives you detail throughout the image. That is first and foremost. Second, when you're outside, you're dealing with movement. So if you're dealing with flower movement and camera movement, you can eliminate at least one of those by putting the camera on a tripod, which most new photographers are not going to do. So that would be huge. To actually get the real detail, if you start doing things like mirror lockup and using a cable release, which is, a little bit more advanced,
Sure.
you're going to start seeing a huge difference in the sharpness of the image. So all of those things can help outside. And then, too, being really aware of your background. If you want to isolate the flower or if you want to use the background to enhance the image, that's a conscious decision you're going to make. So look at what's around the flower, and moving 1 inch one way or the other can make a huge difference in the perspective of what you're seeing. So don't just get one spot and be stuck there. Start moving around and seeing how you can see things a little bit differently.
Sounds great. How much time did you take with some of these different flowers and figuring out what you wanted to highlight, with them?
Yeah, it depends on the flowers. I wrote in the studio today and actually saw this red passion flower out on the vine, and I said, "Oh, not today," because I'm so packed today, and it just looked unique to me today. And I said, maybe if I leave it, it'll still be there tomorrow. So timing is of the essence when you're photographing the flowers, because especially if they're in decaying, they can change literally from the morning till the afternoon in how they look.
Sure. Yeah.
But some of them I've spent a little bit of time with, and some of them I've spent a whole lot of time with. And I think it just depends on how much time I have or how I feel that I've gotten the flower or the image. And as I've gone through, of course, the more I've done, the more I felt, okay, I've done this one, I need to go on. But like when we had the dahlias here, we had 12 different ones. And of course I was busy, and we had a certain amount of days that we felt like they would be where we wanted them to be. So I had to go out there and as a disciplined process, do them. And then I would say, oh God, I've got to be done with this one, but I really want to continue photographing it. Because, we're photographers. We never really want to stop.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Well, that kind of leads me to my next question. We're going to wrap up here in a second and talk about where people can find more information. But what do you hope to do next?
Wow. Well, on Monday, I'm flying to Canada to oversee the final print run of the book. So the book will be here and ready for people for Christmas. So anyone who orders it will have it for Christmas. And we're excited about opening, doing some different galleries. I mean, of course, I would love to do some things around the country. I spent some time with a person last night who has options for me in different countries like Italy, Croatia, London, and that's exciting. And then also I met yesterday with a woman who does a lot of corporate art, and we've got a meeting set up, so we're really excited about seeing, getting these images into, some big buildings, some hotels, some hospitals, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of different revenue streams that you can approach with something like this. And it's had its own life, and really cool things, just like what we're doing today, have happened. And it'll just be interesting to see where it all goes. So we got a lot of irons in the fire here.
That's really exciting. So you mentioned the book. It will be ready for Christmas. Where can people go to find out more information and to pick this up as both inspirational? I think many photographers would like it, and then just people who appreciate nice art.
Yeah, well, you can go to SusanMichalFineArt.com, and I'm assuming that you'll have that somewhere on your website.
That's right. We'll link that right down below this video.
Yeah, and you can see that the name is not spelled normal, so you have to make sure you get that right. But Susan Michal Fine Art. And then there is a button on there that you can go shop, or you can go giving back, and that one will tell you all the information about the PPA Charities collection. You can just purchase the book, and we're happy for you to do it either way, but we're hoping that photographers that can will support this PPA Charities project and go ahead and do the collection so we can send you that beautiful limited edition fine art print.
That's really exciting, right? And so you are selling prints separate from the book as well, correct?
Oh yeah, and you can go on there and shop. And we're using a site called artstorefronts.com. And for any photographers out there that are looking for a cool site to put up, I'll tell you, these guys have got it together. It's not the least expensive site you can do, but they have been phenomenal in helping me get this together when I had very little time to put it together. So it's a pretty cool
Nice.
site.
That's great. That's key in for a lot of folks is we want to sell work, but we don't want to be experts in setting up a storefront. And so handing that off to somebody else who will do it capably is always nice as well.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, Susan Michal, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time. I know you've been really busy. This is a fantastic project, so I wanted to help spread the word a little bit more. And like I said, I'd love to have you back sometime to talk a little bit about that transition from full-time portrait studio, which you are still doing and have a lot of expertise in, to someone who's doing more. I was going to say dabbling, but you're gone well beyond dabbling in the fine
That's
art world.
happening. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
excited. Thanks for having me. And of course, I like to talk, so I'll come back anytime.
That's great. Let me get you back up big so everybody can see. And thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys have a great Christmas, and we'll look forward to getting to know everybody.
All right. Thank you, Susan.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye-bye.